For years, you guys have flooded the comments asking for stories about school lockdowns. Finding the right ones wasn't easy, but after a long search, I finally uncovered 3 accounts that stood out from the rest. Each story begins with a lockdown announcement echoing through the halls. Each one leaves behind questions that were never fully answered. These are 3 disturbing stories that happened during school lockdown. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, when I landed what seemed like the perfect job. My old high school hired me as a computer intern. The position was tucked away in the school's basement place. Most students never even knew existed. The basement itself was a maze of cluttered storage rooms, old equipment, and dimly lit hallways. But hidden among the chaos was our office. And honestly, it was amazing. 3 large desks, 2 mini fridges packed with drinks, a flat-screen TV mounted on the wall, ice-cold air conditioning that felt like heaven during the scorching school days. It was probably the nicest room in the entire building. I got the job thanks to 3 former computer teachers who had always looked out for me. Over the years, our relationship had become more like friendship than teacher and student. When the position opened up, they practically handed it to me. For the first few months, everything was great. Then one afternoon changed that forever. It was lunchtime. My co-workers, Dave and Gary, had gone upstairs to help with paperwork, leaving me alone in the basement office. I was halfway through a sandwich when my phone rang. It was one of the secretaries from the front office. Her voice sounded tense. "The school is in lockdown," she said. "Someone may have entered the building with a weapon." My stomach dropped. The office suddenly didn't feel so comfortable anymore. The worst part, for all its luxuries, the room didn't even have a door, just a wide open entrance. And the basement's main door had a broken lock. If someone wanted to come down here, there would be nothing stopping them. I switched off every light in the office and shut down my monitor. Then I sat in complete darkness, texting Dave and Gary for updates. Neither replied. Minutes dragged by. 20 minutes felt like 2 hours. I couldn't hear anything from upstairs. No voices, no alarms, just silence. School policy prohibited making calls during a lockdown, so all I could do was sit there staring at my phone screen and waiting. Then I heard it. The basement door creaked open. The sound echoed through the darkness like a warning. I sat upright immediately. For a second, I considered calling out, "Dave, Gary," but before I could, someone came sprinting down the stairs. Fast. Too fast. The footsteps pounded across the basement floor, getting closer and closer. Instinct took over. I shoved my chair backward and dove underneath my desk. Seconds later, whoever it was entered the office. But they didn't turn on the lights. They just stood there, listening, waiting. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every breath felt dangerous. Every tiny movement sounded deafening. I remember thinking that if I made a single noise, I was dead. Then my phone betrayed me. DING. A text message. The notification sounded impossibly loud. My entire body locked up. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving directly toward my desk. Closer, closer, closer. At that point, terror completely took over. I scrambled out from under the desk with my hands raised. "Please don't shoot me," I blurted out. Before I could react, someone grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. Standing in front of me was a man I'd never seen before. Red plaid shirt, jeans, dark red baseball cap. He looked nervous.
"It's okay," he whispered. "I'm hiding down here too."
I tried catching my breath. "What's happening upstairs?" I asked quietly. He ignored the question. Instead, he asked,
"Is there another exit down here?"
Something about the way he asked made me uncomfortable. "Yeah," I said, pointing toward the far end of the basement. Before he moved, I asked, "Who are you?" There was a pause, a long pause. Then he explained that he had come to pick up his son, and a teacher told him to hide when the lockdown started. The explanation sounded reasonable enough. Almost. Trying to calm myself down, I looked back at my phone. That's when I saw the text message that had exposed my hiding spot. It was from Dave.
"Dude, this is fucking crazy. Some guy with a gunshot, Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and hat. Whatever you do, don't come upstairs."
I read it once, then twice. My blood turned cold. Slowly, I looked up. Red shirt, hat. The man was staring directly at me. I don't think I've ever felt fear like that before. The realization hit both of us at the same moment. His expression changed instantly. He knew that I knew. Without thinking, I turned and ran. A gunshot exploded through the darkness. The sound was deafening. I heard the bullet slam into something metal behind me. ricocheting through the basement, but somehow, it missed. I sprinted up the stairs faster than I ever have in my life. By some miracle, police officers were already positioned around every exit, including the basement door. The moment the man burst outside, they tackled him and took him into custody. Later, we learned that Mr. Buckley had survived. The shooter apparently had some kind of personal grudge against him, though nobody was ever told exactly what it was. And honestly, I don't care. Because all these years later, there is only one thing I remember. Not the arrest, not the lockdown, not even the moment I realized who he was. What I remember most is the sound of that gunshot echoing through the darkness. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. It was the last class of the day, 7th period, a Friday. The kind of afternoon where nobody cared about school anymore. Spring break was only hours away, and everyone in my calculus class was restless. Nobody wanted to be there. We just wanted the bell to ring so we could finally leave. Even our teacher seemed checked out. He was one of those laid-back teachers everybody loved. Since we didn't have a test that day, he abandoned the lesson halfway through class and pulled up Sporkle on the projector so we could play trivia games together. At the time, it felt like the highlight of the day. We were doing a brand logo quiz. One of my friends shouted out an answer, Adidas, and then everything changed. The loudspeaker crackled to life. The dean's voice came through. I had never heard him sound like that before. He wasn't calm. He wasn't authoritative. He sounded terrified. This is not a drill. All teachers initiate lockdown procedures immediately. The room froze. I felt chills run down my spine. The hairs on my arms stood up. Even our teacher looked shocked. Without saying another word, he rushed across the room, killed the lights, and motioned for all of us to move to the back corner away from the windows. Nobody argued. Nobody joked. Nobody moved slowly. Within seconds, 30 students were huddled together in darkness. For the first couple of minutes, nobody spoke. The silence was unbearable. Then something happened that made everything feel much more real. The faint electrical humming that always came from a panel in the back of the room suddenly stopped. The building had gone completely silent. No lights, no ventilation, nothing. The school had cut the power. Several students exchanged nervous glances. Whatever was happening, it was serious. Minutes crawled by. Then we heard a scream, somewhere down the hallway. Loud, human. The kind of scream that instantly triggers something primal inside you. Everyone in the room froze. The scream grew closer and closer. Then it turned into shouting. A man's voice, wild, unhinged. He sounded completely out of control. As he moved down the hallway, we could hear him slamming into lockers. Metal doors rattled violently. The impacts echoed through the building. Then he started screaming. "I'll kill all of you." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Up until that moment, I had been scared. Now I genuinely thought I might die. 2 girls in the class started crying. Not quiet tears. Full-on sobbing. The sound only made the situation feel more real. Our teacher raised a finger to his lips, desperately signaling for everyone to stay silent. The screaming continued. Then it stopped. Right outside our classroom. For one horrifying second, there was complete silence. Then, bang! Something slammed against our classroom door. Several students jumped. Another bang followed. Harder. One of the girls screamed, "No!" The pounding intensified. Bang! 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 The entire door shook. "Open up!" The man's voice sounded inches away. Every impact rattled the frame. I remember staring at the door, convinced that eventually it would splinter open. The crying grew louder. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Time stopped making sense. Maybe it lasted 30 seconds. Maybe 5 minutes. It felt like forever. Then, suddenly, the pounding stopped. The screaming began moving farther down the hallway, gradually fading, until finally, nothing. We remained frozen in place. Nobody dared move. Nobody dared speak. About 10 minutes later, though it felt closer to an hour, the loudspeaker came back on. The dean sounded exhausted, shaken. He explained that an apparently unstable man had entered the school and assaulted the woman working at the front desk, causing her to flee the building. Staff members weren't sure whether he was armed. Nobody knew where he had gone. At the time, our school didn't have security cameras. There were no security officers. Anyone could walk into the building. After searching the hallways and classrooms, staff couldn't locate him. The dean instructed teachers to resume class, but all doors were to remain locked, and no students were allowed into the hallways. The lockdown was technically over. but nobody felt safe. Nobody paid attention to calculus for the rest of the day. And honestly, the story should have ended there, but it didn't. A few days later, rumors started spreading around school. According to one of the custodians working the night shift, he discovered the same man sleeping inside a storage closet near the back of the building. And according to nearly every version of the story that circulated afterward, there was a .44 Magnum sticking out of his pocket. Nobody knows if that part was true, but that's what everyone said. The even stranger part was that the custodian somehow alerted him. Maybe he accidentally left the closet door open. Maybe he made too much noise. Whatever happened, the man woke up and disappeared before police arrived. Gone. Just like that. No arrest, no answers, no closure. As far as I know, nobody from my class ever learned whether he was eventually caught. Part of me hopes he was. Another part hopes he got the help he desperately needed. But every now and then, I still think about that Friday afternoon. About sitting in complete darkness while an unknown man pounded on our classroom door. And I still wonder, what would have happened if that lock hadn't held? My middle school operated on 2 different lunch periods. The first lunch period was for all 6th graders and some 7th graders, while the second covered the remaining 7th graders and all 8th graders. The lockdown happened in early October. I remember the day clearly because the weather felt strange from the moment I arrived at school. The sky was covered in dark clouds, and a steady rain had been falling all morning. Everything outside looked gray and lifeless. During first lunch, I was sitting with a few friends when 4 loud booms suddenly echoed from somewhere outside. At first, I assumed it was thunder. The storm had been getting worse throughout the day, so it didn't seem unusual. But then the entire cafeteria erupted into panic. Students started screaming. People jumped out of their seats. For a moment, I thought everyone was overreacting. Then campus security rushed into the cafeteria. The look on their faces immediately told me this wasn't normal. They began directing students toward the multi-purpose room as quickly as possible. Kids waiting in line for food were told to leave everything behind and move inside. Nobody was explaining what was happening. Everyone was simply told to move fast. My friends and I followed the crowd. The multi-purpose room was one of the largest rooms in the school. One wall consisted almost entirely of large glass windows facing part of the campus. As students poured into the room, I noticed security staff pulling curtains over every window. At the same time, adults positioned themselves near every exit. The atmosphere changed instantly. Whatever was happening, the staff didn't want anyone looking outside, and they definitely didn't want anyone leaving. The room filled with whispers. Everyone wanted answers. Nobody had any. Eventually, my friend Eric walked over to one of the staff members and quietly asked what was going on. When he returned, he looked noticeably nervous. "You know those houses across from the school?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. Eric lowered his voice. "Apparently someone in one of those houses is involved in a serious situation with law enforcement. They think he may have been near the school earlier today." The group fell silent. That alone was enough to make everyone uneasy. Rumors immediately began spreading around the room. Some students claimed the person had been wandering near campus. Others said police were already nearby. Nobody knew what information was true and what was just speculation. The uncertainty made everything worse. For more than an hour, hundreds of students sat inside that room waiting for updates. Every time a door opened, heads turned. Every unexpected noise made people jump. Eventually, staff informed us that the situation had been resolved. Students were escorted back to their classrooms in small groups, and the school day continued. At least, it tried to. Nobody was focused on class anymore. Everyone was talking about the lockdown. A few days later, I learned something that made the whole situation even more unsettling. One of my friends, Brandy, happened to live near the individual involved. When she heard who it was, she immediately remembered something unusual from the previous Halloween. According to her, she had noticed the same person standing at a window late one evening. Written across the glass was a disturbing warning message telling people to stay away. At the time, everyone assumed it was some kind of Halloween decoration or prank. After all, it was October. Nobody thought much of it. But after the lockdown, that memory felt very different. Looking back, what I remember most isn't the lockdown itself. It's the feeling of sitting in that crowded room, watching the curtains close over the windows one by one. Nobody knew exactly what was happening outside. And sometimes, not knowing is far scarier than knowing the truth.